Resistance is futile. Yeah, I'm broadcasting. It says we are starting shortly. I'm just waiting for that to work. Um, yeah, so should be ready to go. If not, I'll still want Craig Bot in here, if that's okay. Yeah, I'm broadcasting already. Um, yeah, All right. Shogun, I'm gonna move across the live stream so that it's gonna start broadcasting all that conversation. Well, it's not broadcasting the conversation, but yeah, give me the heads up and I'll start that up. Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, you told us about that before, eh? That you were going to go. All right, ready to go? All right. Done.
got a little background noise there. Yeah, so find us on social media, check out our website, find us on the Roundtable Discord, and you can find all our podcasts on YouTube or the RT recorded channel of the server. That being said, I'm going to take a rip, and you guys run with it. Nobody's got anything.
I'm gonna take a rip too. So there's gonna be like a moment of silence kind of thing. So let's just
I can kick it off. So here's the thing. I am one of the people who believes that marijuana is profoundly medicinal, right? It's therapeutic. I really do believe this. It has so many medicinal qualities and benefits. And I really believe it's a big part of why my health is so good, considering that so much of my lifestyle is so bad, right? All my life I've fought, I've been hit in the head, I've been slammed on maths, my brain's bounced around in my skull, plus I drank too much, plus I did drugs when I was growing up, plus didn't eat that well a lot of the time. And yet I'm in extraordinarily good health and athletic condition, and my brain is arguably a little fucked up, but still works pretty damn well. And I think it's largely because I train high every single time I trained. The time I didn't know, now we know that the best thing for fighters, for MMA fighters, for football players is to train high, because the only thing that protects your brain is cannabis. Now we'll talk about that more, but that's just sort of where I sit. Now, on the flip side, I meet people all the time who think cannabis is for lazy people, it's for dumb people, it's for stoners and losers, dropouts, and they just totally stigmatize it. So these are kind of the two sides. One cures cancer, cures everything under the sun, and it's best thing since sliced bread. And the other is, oh, you're a loser if you smoke. So I don't know where people in the room sit, but that's kind of the debate I guess we'll get into.
All right. Well, number one, my name's Abundant. I am 100% in support of all cannabis and all cannabinoids. Before we get started on THC, I would like to say that the new research into CBD and the rest of the cannabinoids and the effects of terpenes, you don't necessarily need THC to even stop seizures. You don't need THC to catch a buzz, apparently. The rest of the cannabinoids in a full spectrum extract, or like straight from the bud, gets the job done. That's like sativa has a higher concentration of CBD and other cannabinoids other than THC, and that's why you get like a more full-bodied experience. For those that are against THC, I just think I should throw that one out there. So that's pretty cool. CBD stops seizures in their tracks. THC stops them even faster. Full spectrum extract totally wipes them out. Plenty of evidence, plenty of videos for proof. But I would like to ask you guys a question. What do you think the most beneficial way of ingesting cannabis is?
I believe that the best you mentioned is full spectrum plant extract. So it's what they call Rick Simpson oil or Phoenix tears. My understanding is it's like the whole plant concentrated down into like a purified cannabis essence. And this is what they use to cure terminal illnesses. That's what, Rick Simpson claims. He says he's been able to cure many, many people who are diagnosed with fatal, lethal, incurable illnesses like stage 4 cancer, lymphoma, leukemia kind of shit that couldn't be saved with medical science. And he says if he's allowed to use this medicine, he can save their life. Now, I can't attest to this, but I believe it's true in many cases. And basically why? Because you don't lose any of the medicinal value of the plant, right? If you only smoke THC, that's not ideal. If you smoke it at all, that's not ideal because the combustion, vaporizing is good, eating is better, but the best of all is Rick Simpson oil.
How do you feel about squish, like rosin? You just squish all the terps and all the rosinous material out of cannabis. Because I started smoking CBD bud lately, and it's like only 0.3% THC, and man, I'll catch a pretty heavy buzz. I get the munchies, and at the same time, I won't piss hot for THC. Completely legal federally, which is incredible. So this thing about you don't necessarily just need THC. as the go all be all. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll smoke my 93% cartridges, THC isolate with 0% anything else, and be high as a kite. But it's not like smoking or vaping a full spectrum. Like, you get the most out of the plant by ingesting the whole plant. And like with when it comes to rosin, you take the plant, you put it between two hot plates, put a shit ton of pressure on it, and it's a solventless extraction, and gets all the terpenes out, gets all the good rosinous stuff, all the THC and the rest of the cannabinoids. And what I found out is low THC hemp, I guess, is still sticky. I did not know that until recently. Like, half the trichomes you see on a plant are the other cannabinoids. They're resinous. They have trichomes. I didn't know that. I think that's pretty cool.
So, good points, all true. And to answer your question, I think rosin is probably the most desirable cannabis product after or equal to RSO, and in principle probably more or less identical medicinal qualities. But then the question is, what do you do with the rosin? Do you vape it? Do you dab it? Do you smoke it? I would say the ultimate thing to do then would be, if you had rosin, you would then cook it in the proper way in like a crock pot or something like that, in coconut oil, and then you would essentially create rosin full spectrum. And again, it's basically expeller pressed cannabis oil. And so it's just pressure pressed, like you said, it's solventless, so it's pure and it's full spectrum. But then you would want to make it orally active by cooking it in like a crock pot.
Decarboxylation, right?
Exactly. You decarboxylate it in a basis of coconut oil, ideally, because it's the highest fat content. And then you would eat that, and that would, in principle, be more or less the same as Rick Simpson oil, I would think.
People have started using heated plates for that reason exactly. So you can, like, these days, if you get like a good rosin, they squish it at like about 125 on each plate at probably, like, I don't know, probably like a ton of pressure. Like, takes a bunch. I remember back in the day, people were using flat irons, for your hair with a little bit of wax paper or parchment. These days, people are making huge rigs and, like bearing presses, and just getting what is it, PFD, or the heating control, I forget, but they put a heating plate on both of it, and it's like automatic decarb. You can take rosin these days. I mean, if it's legit and they use heat, you can take that stuff, take a dab, maybe, put it in a tincture or something, take a shot of it, and you're good to go. You can just eat that stuff right off the parchment. It's crazy.
Yeah. So I want to talk now about, again, and anyone who wants to talk at any time, please just key up and speak up at any time. Anybody. But I want to talk about, what I get out of it the most. And again, I mentioned this before, but in terms of medicinal value of cannabis, if there's one thing that's really, really extraordinary about it, I mean, yes, it's anti-inflammatory, so it can help with injuries and soreness and all kinds of conditions like arthritis or cancer, glaucoma. All kinds of inflammatory conditions are going to be helped by it because it's very anti-inflammatory. The most important thing that this affects is the brain, because inflammation of the brain is very bad. Why? Because inflammation means swelling. Well, the problem is your skull cannot swell to accommodate the swelling of your brain. So if your brain swells too much, you will die, because your brain will then get compressed by your skull. And this is indeed what happens if you get concussed or hit very hard in the head, such as in a football tackle or an MMA punch or kick to the head. And so if you are someone who fights or does football and you're getting a lot of subconcussive head trauma and concussive head trauma or concussions, then you're going to get post-concussion syndrome, you're going to get chronic traumatic encephalopathy, you're going to get brain damage that's cumulative. And so the only thing that prevents this, literally the only thing, is cannabis. I mean, yeah, turmeric or something, but really, and now the NFL knows this, the UFC knows this. The UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship, just announced a huge partnership with something called Aurora Cannabis, which is Canada's largest legal cannabis producer, and they are now literally in partnership, the UFC and Canada's biggest because they know that this is the only thing that will help their fighters. And again, I took a terrible amount of head trauma, mostly from judo, without even realizing it. Now I look back and I just shudder to think of how we were training and what that was doing to our brains. But, well, I'm not really okay. My memory is pretty scrambled. But, I was smoking the whole time, thank God. And just to say one more thing, the risk of dying from head trauma is 50% lower if you are high than if you're not high. So if you're driving high on marijuana, I'm not saying do that, that's against the law and dangerous, but say you were driving high, again, don't do this, and you got in a car crash, your risk of dying would be cut in half because you were high. Like, that's enormous.
I think there needs to be more research in, like what you were saying with like brain swelling and whatnot. The infection I guess it's an infection. I think it's like
It's
it might be
swelling.
a virus or what? What's it called? It's
Corona?
no. It's meningitis. I think I think full spectrum cannabis could be used to treat meningitis just for that reason exactly. Wouldn't have to have a hole drilled in your brain to release pressure if you just vape a little marijuana.
Y'all got that marijuana?
How much did you smoke, NSA? Weed?
Uh, in my life, quite a lot. I got a big check one year, and I bought a fucking volcano. I have a 3 foot fucking volcano bag. I'd go through a quarter a week, probably, or minimum.
Oh man, volcanoes are nice. That's good, that's perfect. A volcano and a gram a day. Boom, beautiful.
Back in the day, well, it was either that or I drank too much, and it would curb my drinking. And now I'm doing neither, so I wouldn't mind smoking, but with my situation mentally, I can get a little paranoid. Obviously, well, they're simulating paranoid schizophrenia, so it'll pull like a distortionated. They'll like fuck with you more when you're under the influence of anything.
Well, talking about paranoia, there's one strain that I can recommend for anyone. It's called Meltdown. I think it's only unique to Illinois at this moment. I don't know if you can find it in other states. But yeah, Meltdown by the company Matter. This strain is amazing. I don't know what's up with it, but there's like no paranoia. There's like a calm, clear-headed, like perfect balance. I don't know if the CBD, the terpenes, no idea what it is. I mean, they do actually put the stuff in the back. It's a very like the packaging is done really well too. Like this company seems very scientific the way they do their shit. So yeah, it's the best thing. If you're gonna smoke, man, you gotta smoke that shit. That's the one.
I like a I like a nice crossbreed. I think a nice crossbred uh, cannabis, like maybe half indica, half sativa is good for people who are used to smoking that want a little bit of both worlds. But if you're new to cannabis, I would absolutely have to recommend starting with a sativa, just because of that reason exactly. A lot of people smoke their first time. They want the strongest of the strong. They want the best of the best. And maybe they get a little nauseous, start hallucinating a little bit of paranoia, and they put it down. That's that's just not a good thing.
I thought sativas were the ones that gave the most paranoia. I don't know. I just thought that was the case.
Well,
That's a common misconception because people don't understand the standard ratios of what substances you're consuming and how they are protagonists or antagonists for how they react to each other.
Yeah, dude, what's up with your voice? How much did you smoke, man? What's
I
going
did like
on?
7 dabs in the last 10 minutes.
he messages me and he's like, "Should I fucking go? How deep should I go, bro?"
Your
And I'm
voice
like,
is
"Go balls deep."
So cannabis, like out of any chemical you should ever mention, is one of the terpenes, which is myrcene, marcene, whatever. You can look it up. It's in mangoes. It's in a lot of different fruit, but it's in weed, and at over 1% by um, mass, so 1% of your total weight of something. If it is over 1% myrcene, um, you usually have a complete counter reaction to THC, which is psychoactive. Because when you inhale or smell myrcene, it causes endogenous morphine to be released naturally in your brain. Your brain can produce itself, and that's what endogenous means. And that's just one terpene. Alpha pinene, beta pinene, carnitine, linalool. I mean, I could probably list like 12 or 15, but I mean, what matters really is you would ask, okay, are any of, or how often are ones at what strength? And that's where strains come in. It really has nothing to do with THC or CBD besides the relative ratio. Is it one way or the other majority, or is it 50-50? Or what specific ratio of terpenes? And that's where the differential and highs come in, and that's where all the confusion happens with people because they don't know much about the actual chemicals and what they're consuming at what time.
All right, so that's great.
Dude,
So
you just blew my mind.
can we like extract these, like isolate these terpenes, and
Terpenes
then
can be
They do.
easily
It's called
distilled
sauce.
with simple steam distillation. So if
okay,
you take your fresh weed and steam distill it, you will get all the high fractal compounds, so terpenes, and you just look into how the steam distillation works, and you can figure that out pretty easily. Once you do that, you would use other solvents. You would use polar solvents, not non-polar solvents, to get out whatever by molar mass, whatever you're. If you want to get just cannabinoids, the best thing besides a blend of solvents is specifically I'm forgetting right now the stuff everyone thinks puts people to sleep. Chloroform, yeah.
Chloroform.
so there's this
So
is I. Sorry, go ahead.
So like a simple, like very advanced way, but is it not like crazy advanced, would just be steam distilling your weed to preserve the terpene profile. Because if you use terpenes evaporate off of cannabis with the water because they're lower boiling point than water. That's why they're high fractal in the temperature range.
Does
So
would you know
if you
anything
tried
about
to
like
use
subcritical CO2? What is it?
that's called a superfluid. So it's when you have
It's not a
a
superfluid.
solvent.
It's a
Huh? Oh,
critical.
no, I mean
It's
not
not.
superfluid.
It's critical.
Oh, it's
Critical
the third
state.
critical.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's at a
exactly.
critical state. Yeah.
And essentially, it's like a mix of, like, it's a state between gas and water. So
No,
it's really weird.
it's a gas and a solid.
No, gas and a liquid. Actually, that's why it can dissolve, and at the same time, it just, it pierces through everything because it's a gas. It's this weird state, and the cool thing is, if you do it in a chamber, and you can do this experiment with dry ice actually. But the thing is, you get this chamber, and then I don't remember if you increase the oh yeah, you decrease I forgot how the experiment went. The point is, there's going to be half of it is going to be filled with CO2, liquid CO2. And after the temperature reaches something, I forgot what it was, you're going to see that line that separates the air and the air CO2 and the liquid CO2 disappear. It becomes this weird wavy thing. It's so cool, and yeah, it's one of the best solvents for that.
So the formula is just getting to the right amount of pressurized CO2, and you just do that by putting in a gas or putting in solid gas and heating it up to a certain temperature, and that equals a certain pressure, and that it's pretty crazy dangerous though because it like if you take like a block or two of dry ice, it's gonna blow anything you're gonna put up in it.
Yeah, it's yeah, definitely, it's
Yeah.
dangerous to mess around with, and yet there's two components: pressure and of course temperature. You need to There's a sweet spot. There's a graph, and you can look
Well,
at.
there's critical and supercritical, and I'm pretty sure there's other categories, and it just has to do with what pressure it is. And the CO2 at these pressure and temperature isn't an actual chemical reaction. It's just a physical reaction that causes whatever to come out, specifically come out of the plant material from a physical action.
And the cool thing about liquid solvents is not volatile, like toxic uh, compounds that you need to like evaporate off, like butane or naphtha or whatever, or
Butane comes out pretty
even
easy because its boiling point is 32 degrees freezing.
well, what I was gonna say is like when it comes to like liquid CO2, or I hate to advocate for BHO, but I'll throw it in there too. But a closed loop system, you can, you bathe your weed, you keep your gas at a pressure that it stays a liquid. You can recover um, all the good stuff, distillate that, distill from that, and you retain all of your solvent, which is pretty cool when it comes to like liquid CO2 and whatnot.
One thing I wanted to ask is, so let's just say I wanted to create a new product on the market. It's going to be, of course, weed, but like this is going to be like the next level version. So what I want to do is extract all the active components, the active ingredients, the
That's
terpene, the
thousands of
CBD.
chemicals if you get enough strains.
Well, well, we'll get I don't know, whichever ones that are more important. I guess we'll selectively get something that's feasible, something that's practical.
The
And
highest you can get on weed is with the entourage effect, and it's an equal ratio of as many cannabinoids as you could have at the same time.
What do you mean about entourage effect?
The entourage effect is when the more cannabinoids you have, so each cannabinoid is either an antagonist or a pro-antagonist of another cannabinoid, so there's a chain of which one counteracts other ones in specific ways for how each one reacts on you. So,
So
for
you're saying
a
there's
perfect example of this, of just like testing the strength, is take like as many different concentrates or as many different kinds of weed as you can and just mix them and smoke it. It's usually way stronger than any of them.
well,
This is correct. This is
I
why
don't
they've
smoke,
started
but just
making
want to know
like
the science behind
diamonds
it.
and sauce and
And
whatnot. Like they
it's doing this because of entourage effect, but to maximize it, you would have to. The best example of this would be to have as many as you could. So imagine having, THC, A, THC, CBD, CBGA, CBN, THCV, so on and so forth, and all of these are at 1 gram, and you have 100 grams or 10 grams, just 10 of them, whatever, tenth of a gram, and mix it. The more and more you'd mix for cannabinoids, the more unique overall blanketed strong effect it should have.
so if we were to like do a manufacturing process to get these out step by step, what would you think would
A
be?
short path distillation is the easiest way you're going to do it, and that's just a piece of glassware. It's specific apparatus.
Well, I mean,
And you
on
can
an industrial scale, though, like imagine we're gonna just get all the weed that we can find. Just doesn't matter what strain it is. We put it through this
closed
machine that
loop,
just turns it into this goo, and then we selectively, chemically, or whatever, extract the
closed loop
important shit.
systems, and then distill off all the things like, and then make the diamonds, which is like 99.9% THC. You add the terpenes, whatever terpenes you want. It's like tailor-made weed sauce. It's
Exactly,
kind of hard to
exactly.
dab, but some
The
pretty good stuff.
the point is, I want tailor-made weed. I want to get these things, isolate them, and then people can order whatever the fuck ratio they want. That'll be pretty cool. Like as a company, if someone wants to provide that. Like imagine vapes, or I don't know if you can do it in vape form or not, but vapes that you can select exactly what components of terpenes and CBD or whatever is in it. How cool would that shit be?
I
It's
mean,
happening. It's
that's
happening.
been a
There's a
big
company
thing for a
in
while.
California, TerpX. Like they kind of like started the whole sauce revolution years ago, probably around like 2013, um,
Uh,
in Denver. Like when they were in Denver, they were talking to the hash gods in Denver, and they came up with the sauce. So they took like THC diamonds, straight up 100% THC isolate. They started
THCA, if
mixing
it's
it
a
with
diamond that's a
different,
crystalline form, the acid makes it clear and solid.
yep. And then they put in the terpenes. They put in the whatever cannabinoids they want to put in there for the desired effect, and tailor-made weed. Bada bing, bada boom. It's kind of hard to get in touch with these companies and request certain things, but it's easy to it's really not that expensive. For like $2,500, you can kind of do it yourself.
If you just buy the bottle that I just linked on Amazon, which is a pure myrcene, if you just smell it for like a few seconds, it makes most people pass out. And this is
What
like
is
the
this?
main thing, the third main constituent of cannabis that gets you high. So I can't remember what the acronym, but it's like almost the highest rated for purity.
Wait, can you repeat that? You said if you smell this, what will happen?
Well, I mentioned it earlier in my spiel, but it when you smell it, it causes endogenous morphine to be triggered to be created in your head.
Holy. And you can buy it. You just
Yeah,
like,
you can
yeah.
extract it from mangoes as like something like when you smell a mango and it's like musky.
Uh huh.
That's the smell of this, but way
Damn.
concentrated.
Interesting. So what you're saying is our endocannabinoid systems don't necessarily even need cannabis to be
I
activated.
can make vape juice that
Naturally,
you
they're
would think
already
is weed, but
activated.
isn't, but just with terpenes because of how hot. How like when you get really really high and like want to pass out, it's usually because of this stuff. You, if you have like shitty dabs that had a like you still, it's possible still to have like the remaining that doesn't gas out of concentrate that you can have if your dabs sit for weeks and weeks is still enough to like make, if you smoke enough for the right person, easily like pass out. But if you have that stuff not in there at all, the likelihood is significantly higher of not having that reaction.
Kind of like if you let your wax sit around for a while and it nucleates and gets kind of, I mean, your shatter sit around for a while, and, you get like the it starts turning kind of yellow and like kind of Play-Doh-y, and it just nucleation, I think, is the
I
name.
thought of a way to extract cannabis with itself.
Like the better your hash
Never done it
smells,
though.
the more um, the more probably whatever you're talking about is being released. Because you know how if you get like a really dank nug and you sniff it and you're just like, oh,
What I'm talking about, dude, and what I don't know is nothing that's secret. It's, I mean, there's plenty of, like, it's not like cannabis has unique molecules, cannabinoids specifically, so it's like all the other shit has been known because it's in a lot of other plants and they've known it a long time. It's like the reason frankincense and myrrh was used in the original oldest oil medical balm that was used that they found from Jesus's time that had frankincense, myrrh, and hemp in it, or weed. I mean, and one
Doesn't
of in frankincense, I can't remember the terpene, but in myrrh there's comfort, which is a really strong natural terpene that gives like a woody cinnamon, more of a woody smell, and it's a natural chemical that helps bring things in through your skin.
kind of like menthol. It smells.
It's way
Am
more
I right?
powerful than menthol. It's more like DMSO, if you know what that is.
I
so
don't. Please do explain.
so Belushi. Um,
Yeah.
I've read that the brain has cannabinoid receptors, so that's like a natural, like it's part of our own biology to process these cannabinoids. Is that correct?
Yeah,
You're right. It's
essentially.
not just the brain, the whole body. Especially the gut. That's why you get so stoned and for so long when you ingest cannabis orally.
So weed's amazing, but it also, just like any tool, can be used to be bad. And think about it, it's like certain tools, you think a hammer, it's like, oh, a nail, sure, but think about all the other things. It's just like any blunt object, it's bad. So cannabis is super complicated. When you say cannabis, I mean, you're easily listing over 1,000 things you'd want to isolate individually, you'd want for a specific reason.
I wish we could get that done. You know, what I mean, like get the list, get a manufacturing
Well, the list exists. I
process.
can list shit. That's easy. That's like, I mean,
Yeah, please do.
public
Can you,
information. The temperatures at which these things separate.
fractional distillation process. Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah, please post
I'm
that
surprised
for
you're not
sure.
running
Yeah,
your own
and
dispensary,
definitely
Billy
get it
Fink.
lab tested. Lab test. Get the MSDS on.
I don't trust any rating I've
Not
ever seen for weed.
privatized labs.
I've seen a couple labels on stuff that shows a
Can I
ratio
have the toast,
of
love?
like how there's like 5 bars and they're all the same length, and it's the ratio of the like 5 main terpenes and some that concentrate. But that's as far as I've ever seen shit taken for good labeling for like chemical constituents.
That's why, when you start distillating things, you gotta put it all back together. Lego puzzle. After you lose a, you know, some terpenes are so volatile, like poof away.
Which one?
Weed, loses its
Well, dude,
potency
terpene. You
after
know,
a while because
terpenes.
terpenes
Terpenes
volatile.
is the biggest group of chemicals in chemistry. So yeah, so that's.
And what a
So
shame,
what?
Like I think people just
Turpentine's a
start
terpene, and
focusing
that's
more
where
on
the verbiage
full
comes
spectrum.
from.
Yeah,
I
I
think
was
we
gonna.
should.
Sorry,
No. Well, no. Go ahead. I'm done.
I was gonna ask what classifies something as a terpene, and what does that even mean exactly?
Smell good
Such
stuff.
really long. It's like a paragraph to like fall into the category.
Just
There
like
might
They're
be
like
2 sentences. Let me
they
see.
fall into under the phenol class, right?
Sounds right.
Sounds might be right, but who knows? We're all fucking.
one thing I know, this meltdown is got all the good shit because I can tell it. I don't need any lab stuff. I can tell it by smoking it. This is the best shit out there.
Can we
I've
discuss
bought
the
in.
Sorry, you go, Billy Fink, because it's still the same.
You were talking first.
No, it's going to derail it a little bit. Different aspect of marijuana. So yeah, you continue.
I've had up to 7 isolates of individual terpenes and use that to recipe different ratios. And there's a lot for flavor and adjusting and mild effect changes, but the main ones for importance for how much it can change the high is myrcene, alpha and beta pinene, linalool, and
Sour D. A lot of that.
alpha alpha pine no pylenylene. Yeah, pylenylene can like make you feel like you're having a heart attack, like caffeine can for a stimulant wise by itself, just like THC
Phenylenediene or whatever it is from like Sudafed shit that they do.
No, it's a natural plant chemical.
Oh, bitter orange extract, right?
All the terpenes are just like turpentine. They're a very strong odor, thin, clear liquid, if they're even relatively pure. And the thing, full spectrum extracts of cannabis are wonderful because of one thing a lot of people don't ever mention about what it can have in it is polyphenols. And a lot of chemicals that can come from cannabis are polyphenols, and they're just what polyphenols are is plant chemicals that can be beneficial to humans
When I finish this,
or mammals in general.
That plastic thing
Are you a mammal?
and your cup.
look at this.
No,
Do you lay
I
eggs?
believe in religion, and I'm not an animal.
Do you lay eggs, bro?
No, I'm not
So
a
when someone
woman.
talks,
Yeah.
a womb man.
and the two channels in Discord, and it's
If you could be, would you be?
Could you thread the eye of the needle with the
You
egg
guys,
in some tight ass
question.
general's anus?
Sorry.
Would you rather be a female or a male cannabis plant?
Dude, I wish I was a 5 foot tall female jumping on big dicks right now,
Through rich friend
Yikes.
The craziest high I've ever
Can't
gotten
look
from a
up.
natural weed product is if you take
But yeah, it's got two
the
viewers
pollen
on-
Did you create
from a
that?
weed plant, it's way stronger than
Are you
keef.
having another drink?
Yes,
Tea or
please.
coffee?
Oh, tea.
Tea.
What,
Are you choosing Jay?
Really?
Yeah.
Did you know what parts of the body? Do you know how the cannabinoid system works in the CNS though, throughout the body and shit?
I mean, I know in general.
I'll have to go
So
down
like
today
the cannabinoid, the
and
THC itself, and the cannabinoids in CBD and all that, they bind to the receptors in the CNS, which slows down the electrical signal
did everything right.
that's going through the body.
Yeah.
It's where you get that relief and anxiety relief from, and that relief reduction in anxiety response trigger from the electric signaling reduces cortisol levels overall. So that's why you get like it literally resists cancer because cortisol is a breakdown chemical that makes it'll cannibalize your proteins, your fat, etc. When you're in a stress situation, you need energy and stuff. So it blunts that effect a little bit. It's kind of neat.
Cute.
And your dick has nerves in it and whatnot.
Sometimes.
You have the nerve to say your dick has nerves? What?
I have an any balls, not an outie balls. Wait, what am I talking about?
Whoa.
Aliens came to your head. Wasn't.
Aliens are in my head again, everybody. Here we go. Oh, there. Awesome. Y'all want to come
Sorry,
down to
guys.
Austin, Texas? You can make yourself some extra testicles and marijuana.
All right.
And
Extra
So,
death.
produce sperm count. That's a
I can't believe it's still illegal in
Cannabis.
Texas. What a bunch of fucking cowboys down here.
What about you?
That's bullshit.
I know. So, like, I can't even participate because it's, like, technically illegal, and I'm, like, on every list known to mankind. That's all
Only
I
if
need.
you get caught.
That's all I need is a weed case on me, you know what I mean?
Or heroin case.
So can we
Well,
discuss
these fucking degenerates would, like, throw you away for weed if they could get away with it. They're a bunch of crackers.
Can we discuss the
So-
consequences and repercussions of smoking marijuana? Like people who are predisposed to psychosis,
Smoking anything's
paranoia.
Well, in
Yeah.
Phoenix, you can get a life sentence for a big bag of weed. In Arizona, rather, and Nevada.
Yeah.
Like, they
So obviously,
Has
Sorry.
anyone
I thought
here ever
Arizona
had
was
Green
a-
Dragon
Hold
or
on.
Red
hold
Dragon?
on, one at a time. Hold on, calm down. So the question was AINSOFs, and it was what about the negative consequences of weed? And NSA is absolutely right that legally there can be big consequences, but in terms of the drug itself, the big ones are that smoking marijuana regularly causes a greatly increased risk of psychosis and schizophrenia-related conditions. Part of that is drug-induced psychosis, and part of it is people having underlying mental conditions that are triggered by the drug or the drug-induced psychosis. So it is very true that like there is an association between psychosis, schizophrenia, and marijuana use, heavy marijuana use. That's true. And then it's also true that if you smoke during your developmental years, like your teenage years and adolescence, then that will permanently change the way that your brain develops. So ideally, you should wait until you are like 25 to begin smoking marijuana. That would be ideal. Now, many
Right.
people
Wait
like
till
myself
you're-
did not do that.
Executive lobe needs to be a little more function developed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then other than that, you know, it costs a lot of money. If you smoke a lot of weed, you're going to spend a lot of money on it. If you saved all that money over a lifetime, you could like buy a house or a car or something. So that's one thing to consider.
Buy a wife.
I would like to point out that actually this is kind of a loaded question in a weird way. Not a loaded question; it's just a incorrect question because marijuana, it's not just one thing. There's so many fucking types of it. There's some different strains with completely different effects. For example, as I stated, the one that I'm currently using gives zero paranoia. In fact, it reduces it. So I don't know if there is, like, you can't just say marijuana increases paranoia. It has to be X and X and X strain produces this and this and that. And if people want to criticize it, they should do it by strain, by ratio. That's the only way there can be any criticism of it. Anything else is inaccurate. Also, I wanted to point out that weed is legal as fuck in Nevada. I don't know what you were saying, NSA, but in Nevada you can buy like
Didn't used to
a
be as
shit
well.
ton of weed. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's so good
Yeah,
right now.
the
Man. Like
laws that they
dispensaries.
had, the laws that they had for the plant, like a quarter of marijuana in Nevada, could get you up to life in prison.
Yeah, right now though, there's dispensaries like gas stations around. You can walk to them. It's like within walking distance from like most.
Yeah, no,
it's
that's
crazy
legit now.
how much. Like,
And even the cops in Texas don't really give a shit, but their hard asses would still use it. You know what I mean? These because there are some hard ass cops, and they just want to. They don't like you. They want to fuck you over. They can still use that law because it's still law. Even though the sheriffs, like in Austin, for example, they don't give a fuck in Austin really about weed. They just care about the other shit. But they see this correlation, causation, like Jeff Sessions. Like Jeff Sessions, the highest court guy in the land, whatever, the attorney general, is sitting up there in front of the world stage and is saying, "Only bad people smoke marijuana." Are you fucking kidding, dude? Are you serious right now? It's literally federally approved for PTSD for veterans only right now, and you're going to tell me they're all bad people now?
Yeah.
And there's no medicinal value.
yeah, and not just that. Another thing about people saying marijuana, negative effects of it, and you can't just again blanket that statement because not only is the strain really important, the person is really important too. Every person reacts to things differently. Medicine is like for individual basis, essentially should be. I mean, ideally, a doctor is supposed to give you precise medication designed for you and you only because everybody's body and everything else is different. People react differently to different things. And so whenever someone says X is bad, Y is good, this is a fallacy. It's not even a coherent statement. It's bullshit. Someone is lying to you. That's a lying tactic. Don't ever believe that kind of shit. When someone says this is not good for you, tell them to go fuck themselves. That's it. That's the only response. Go fuck yourself. That's all.
And if you can't fuck yourself, try and fold your penis back and put it at least the tip in.
I can do that.
You too, dude.
There's nothing wrong with weed. There's something definitely very wrong with the people that say there's something wrong with weed, though. I mean, that I can 100% stand by. Those that have problem with weed are actually mentally ill. They're sickos.
Yeah.
And I can get into the psychology of that. They're
Well, it's like the guys that are so against like homosexuality. They're usually the really really staunch ones. Are usually the gay ones themselves. Like these guys are so repressed in their worldview that it's like they can't stand to see anybody else have a good time. They're so repressed because of their upbringing. It's kind of sad almost to see people like that. And there's a lot of them in the United States, to be honest.
Yeah, and like again, when I said earlier about the psychosis thing, it's just that there are some people who the marijuana will have an effect on them that makes them essentially exacerbate their mental health problems. But that doesn't mean that it normally causes mental illness in healthy people. It absolutely doesn't. And also, it has to be said that, for example, CBD, one of the ingredients in cannabis, is like a really effective antipsychotic and really, really good for your mental health, which is part of cannabis as well. So.
Well, that's interesting because things like nicotine are also antipsychotics. That's why they give cigarettes to smoking to separate.
A coronavirus.
So the relative most high amount of terpenes there are in weed, if it's fresh, is it can be 10% by weight terps. When you dry your weed, you lose easily 60% of how much of that weight there was. Because of drying it out, it leaves with the water. That's why if you want to preserve it, what it is when it's fresh, you would separate it off first before drying it out.
Wow, that's good to know. So if I'm gonna buy weed, I gotta get moist ones, preferably if possible.
Well, if you dry it out and you aren't collecting what's evaporating, you're losing out on what you created. Yeah.
What's wet is wet.
Terpenes.
Non-dried. Terpene.
60% of evaporate when you dry your weed.
Why does the other 40% not?
And I'd like to throw this in there. Most people think of
remaining moisture.
I'm moist.
They think there's two species: cannabis indica,
there's three.
Sativa, but then there's cannabis ruderalis. Ruderalis, right? Where we get our CBD buds from.
Correct.
CBD buds. What do you mean by that?
CBD buds. Autoflower. If they combine it with a indica or a sativa, pretty easy growing bud. The flowers plant. But ruderalis, say that.
I think you're
I think
roboting at my end.
if people start with ruderalis, they'll work their way to a higher level. See if because THC is the most psycho.
THCV is stronger, psychoactive. Also, the only forms of THC you're going to find is Delta 6 and 9 if you have Delta 2, which you can decarboxylate unnaturally with acid, not
Yikes.
temperature. If you That's called acylation. You use acid to purify it to its active form. Yeah,
I
you
would
put
not.
one drop of sulfuric acid per 100 milliliters of ethanol and 1 gram of concentrate, relatively pure.
Is sulfuric acid 100% volatile?
What do you mean?
Does it evaporate?
You're not going to put in the correct exact ratio that every single atom every single molecule of sulfuric acid is used, and that's why you just put in the lightest little sprinkle of neutralizer, which can be easily removed itself, or doesn't matter anyway itself for it to be there.
By the way, thank you, Belushi, for the notes. Those were really awesome. And if you could also post those in a library channel as well, it would be great because it permanently stays there. So everybody could have access to it. I would really appreciate that as well.
Although that notes is
Thanks,
really,
Dad.
really pretty old.
Are
Does
there
it even
links to
say
those
it? Yeah, it
notes?
Where are
does
these
say
notes
it.
go?
So if you had a short path distill or a correct fractional still, those numbers right there can tell you at what point those fractions at what temperature will be what. And you can see it's not much of a change between some of the temperatures, and that's where you have to have fancy shit.
What about
There's
mixing
a
That's very
marijuana
good.
with other chemicals like DMT?
I mean, that's perfectly safe to do that. It wouldn't be dangerous in any way. I mean, I'd probably, yeah, Peruvian
I'd work your way
vacationers
up.
do it all the
I'd
time.
work your way up.
I mean, I'm not saying there's any particular reason to mix it, but there's no danger involved in it, really.
What about synthetic marijuana?
That's
Nope.
super
Completely
like,
toxic and poisonous. You should
Well,
burn
yeah,
that
the
shit with a
first-
How
1,000 foot
do you?
pole.
What's the process of making it, and how does it get on the street, shit like that?
Oh, shut up. Sorry, I didn't mean that. I didn't think you were joking. But no, we're not going to talk about how to make synthetic marijuana. This is a cannabis
No,
event.
I
That's
don't even know
totally
what it
different
is.
drugs. It's poisonous, toxic bullshit that has nothing to do with marijuana. But it's a synthetic drug that was made to act on the cannabinoid receptors. But it's completely synthetic chemical. It's like makes you have comas and your kidneys fail, or makes you go blind, gives you permanent brain damage. Has nothing to do with weed.
Wasn't the cannabis drug? I mean, wasn't the cancer drug Marinol made before it was?
Marinol is made from actual marijuana. That's like a synthetic THC, but that's not the same as spice or K2 or synthetic weed. Synthetic weed is like horrible, dangerous bullshit.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's like a whole class of research chemicals that stupid people take as thinking it's some kind of alternative to weed. And literally people, like a 15-year-old will do it one time and literally be in a hospital, tubes in their body, like eyes rolling back in their head, be a vegetable for the rest of their lives from like a single time using it.
Oh, we can't get it from the doctor though. That's fucked.
If they don't get run over by a car running through the streets naked.
Yeah, do not use synthetic weed. But let's talk about cannabis, because I mean, the point is that's all you need to know about synthetic weed. Don't ever try it.
Is there any way to reverse it if you ever realize like, hey, I just smoked synthetic and
Hey?
just
Go to hospital
okay?
How about we
or lie down and drink water.
how about we get into the not legality, but like the statistics of marijuana? You know, how many people got hurt from it relative to other drugs, and let's look at the facts, see what kind of a drug it really is. Because I can tell you one thing: most people smoke that shit. So there's a lot more people that are smoking that than you think. that probably is
Oh,
even
really?
being recorded
Yeah,
in the statistics.
definitely.
It's insane the number of people that are smoking it. So that with that information in hand in your mind, let's look at the statistics of how many of those many people that smoke this shit, how many of them actually get hurt from it? How many of them died from it? Let's look at that. If anybody knows it, please say it. If not, I'm not
Died?
going
Overdose?
Can you
Zero.
imagine me
Yeah,
being here?
exactly. I think it is something around 0 or
Oh,
0
everything else I'll be able
exactly.
to make
So
myself out of it.
the
Now,
idea
if you're
of
driving
this,
around on any kind of intoxicant,
No,
if there's one,
yeah.
I've been anybody intoxicated. The safest one to drive on for potheads, definitely.
I think you're cutting in and out. Is that just me or?
Oh no, I have my my turn it up. I'm nice.
Yeah,
no, your connection's screwed up abundant. I thought it was me, but maybe we just wait till you get on Wi-Fi or something.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
it's
really
Discord.
hard.
Here, is this better?
Yeah, right now it's good. Yeah.
It's better. Yeah, I had my sensitivity.
That's better.
I was on push to talk in the car. Had to get the bugs.
Oh, okay, it's great now. Yeah, good. You can repeat what you said because we didn't catch essentially all of that.
Most stoners, um, they'll be the first to tell you like I'd rather drive like baked than drunk. Much safer. And you go on YouTube, like look at the tests, like like cops testing people with alcohol versus weed and driving courses. Like the stoners always win. Like it's a safer drug to. I'm not once again I'm not advocating driving on any intoxicant at all. Highly I highly disagree with that.
Until we
But
get
at the
automatic
same
driving.
time, at the same time, I mean, most stoners, cruising down the street with their blunt or their joint or their vape or whatever, they'll be just fine. It's like walking down the street. Actually, your senses might be enhanced. You can hear better. You can see a little bit better. Might drive a little more careful and little, because you're smoking. You don't want to get caught. When on alcohol, your inhibition goes out the window. On marijuana, it stays. And boy, does it stay. Like some strains, cause such paranoia. Like you're there is no inhibition in paranoia. So like,
I will paranoia your.
it's a much safer drug statistically when it comes to like car accidents or accidents involving this drug versus that. I'm pretty sure I'm not excluding Tylenol. Um, Weed's on the top of the list of like one of the safe
What about
drugs
the
you can
psychology
ingest.
of paranoia? What causes paranoia? I mean, what is paranoia? Is it the fear? What,
I mean, all you can say about it is that weed has an effect of making people introspective as well as vigilant. So it'll make you think about things on your mind, make you feel guilty about things that you did wrong, or make you feel anxious about things that could happen, or make you, trip out about stuff. Basically, anything from thinking the cops are going to find you smoking a joint to thinking that you fucked your whole life up because you didn't chase your dreams. Like, or that girl in high school was really the girl for me, and I ruined my whole life because I should have married her. Like, it'll just make you like think about like shit in your mind, whatever that might be.
So
Yeah, like the drug itself, the paranoia, right? So we're
just different, like that's like psychosis. Weed just makes you hyper vigilant, which is not a bad thing. It makes you aware of your surroundings. That's why, like, you smoke a joint or you vape some stuff and you go out into nature and it's all pretty and vibrant and birds are chirping extra loud and the wind's blowing and you notice the sun on your skin. It's just it's a hyper vigilant thing. It's not like
and don't get me.
it's not like I'm so sketched out psychotic that I'm thinking these things. You're just more open to these things, and that's where creativity comes into play too. You're so much more aware on cannabis than you are on most other psychedelics, maybe. So I was just going to say, though, what I was describing was not psychosis, right? Psychosis is when you lose your mind, you basically become delusional or whatever. That's what psychosis is. What I was describing is a state of introspection where you're thinking about your life and having like feelings about your life.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
like,
not say. I just want to clarify that's not psychosis.
That's like paranoia psychosis. Weed is like just hypervigilance. It's not necessarily paranoia. It's just like you're just more aware. Like, you know, for example, like if somebody did some meth or some coke, they're not going to walk out into nature and be like, "Oh, it's so beautiful. Look at the birds and the trees."
Have you ever done meth, bro?
I have.
That's exactly what they would do. Are you kidding me? And then they dump it.
I've done meth.
Yeah, like you're gonna do a bunch of meth and get lost in the woods, like that one guy with his girlfriend getting lost, like
that's the whole point of doing it.
Like 30 feet away from their house, and they died in the winter. That is not hypervigilance. That is, I am so scared. I'm stuck in a foxhole.
So meth, when regards it creates an alpha brainwave state because it's dumping your norepinephrine and your dopamine and all these things. So you are actually hypervigilant and focused while on meth. That's why it works for people with ADD, because these people their brain patterns are all over the place, and they get focused on a specific one because of it.
Can we do a podcast on meth one day, guys?
Sure, yeah, definitely.
It has a lot of German history.
We'll just do meth. Can we all do meth one day?
No,
it does.
Don't do meth.
All right, hey, I want to do it again. Take one for the team.
It's crazy. People are like, oh, people in the South, all these meth heads.
Wasn't Hitler the first person to mass produce it for an army?
Oh, dude, he was on like crazy stuff.
Ephedrine.
My great uncle, who was a ranger in NSA for 10 years, said that they used to tweak them out. They used to give them meth, so they've been doing it up till probably the 80s. That was the peak for 80s, and so the Bayer Corporation made something called Desoxin, and that's what pilots were using up until they said they stopped it in 1965. Please don't overtalk about it. You're getting bad about it. So they said they would use it till 1985. Until 65 is when they were using meth for pilots. They said they discontinued it, but they continued doing it.
Okay, so
we'll do a meth event for sure.
They switched to modafinil.
Sweet.
Yeah, they're on modafinil right now, probably. New
Yeah, Provigil, yeah.
So, Belushi, what's the story behind that torch thing that he's like the plant he passes out from smoking?
Are you serious right now? You don't know what TV show that is?
No, I don't.
Oh my god, you've never
That's
seen
Trailer Park Boys, buddy.
Oh no.
Wait, what? You never seen Trailer Park Boys, bro?
He didn't know Ricky from Trailer Park Boys.
I'm sorry.
It's the best stoner humor you'll ever see, Mac. I highly recommend watching it.
Yeah, you really should watch it. It's the most famous Canadian comedy.
And it beats like 80% of comedies.
Great, it's Canadian. It must be good.
One of the best shows. It's one of the best shows ever made in terms of comedies.
I'm pretty picky, and it's legitimately one of the best things I've ever seen in the comedy.
We should watch some on the server sometime. Yeah.
You hear that? That's the shit barometer is rising. There's a shitacane on the way.
Yeah, Mac, whenever I post those pictures where it's that guy talking about shit weasels and shit gardens and shit things, that's always from Trailer Park Boys.
Is there still weed left, or did you guys smoke it all?
Oh, dude, okay. Back in a bowl.
Pass the virtual blunt.
I'm dipping my dabs in a little bottle of Mercine right now.
The funny thing about that weed that he's smoking is that's Ricky's fucking creation. Like, he bred it, and it was his baby, and it was super powerful.
What did he say it was? Was it some stupid name, or was it the really long named one?
I think it was a really long named one.
Yeah. He fucking passes out. Oh my god. From my personal experience, I can say that doing what he did with that torch and smelling it is possible.
Oh, wait, I actually have, one sec. I have a video for you all.
Like, if you seriously, $25, buy that little bottle of shit, you are literally getting a little bottle of why, like, 40% of weed is strong.
Is it legal?
I mean, in the sense of what it is and buying it, yeah, but in the sense of like like selling it for medical use, no, it's not okay. But its toxicity
But you
is
can
like
you can buy it. Like, you can just
yes,
go online and just, whoop, get some
it's
mercy.
easy. Even if it was illegal, it'd be easy to make.
They should make all drugs legal, but illegal to use.
Where would one find this mercy?
I
You're
literally
talking
said like
about
5
a
times.
terpene isolate, though, just to be clear. That's what you're taking, or dosing
Yeah,
like a
well, you're not
terpene.
even taking it. You don't have to orally take it. Just smell it. Just barely, like smell it. Literally, just like. Have you guys ever been to a sex shop? Ever?
Yeah, I bet where I get all my toys
You know
from.
those little? They'll say it's like glue remover bottles.
It's not true. It'll
Poppers.
Poppers, yeah.
This is like
It's video
100,000 times less toxic than that shit.
It's brand as video head cleaner or room deodorizer is what it's brand as.
This is natural. When you cut open a freaking
a
mango and you cut it and it starts to dry out, if you're in a dehydrator, you will literally smell. And you could do the exact same thing as I'm telling you. It's just a step further by doing this.
What? So why are we all smoking weed? Let's all smoke.
Like that bottle, if you properly use it and it doesn't go bad, is like 6 months of getting fucked every day.
Wait, so you actually get high from it? You don't just like
smelling
enjoy
the
the hell
stuff,
out of it?
just getting it into your blood supply by breathing it, it causes this. And this is the.
But is it a high, or is it just like I like to smell this much that's
it
like
causes it causes your body, specifically your mind, to have endogenous morphine be created.
Amazing.
And what is this again?
Myrcene.
It's
the chemical I've talked.
terpene, so.
It's a chemical I've talked about extensively during this conversation, and it is the third, or I like to argue, second most important chemical in cannabis. First being THC and THCA, whatever you want to say.
You linked an Amazon link for that compound.
That is not isolated from weed. It's isolated from mangoes. But it doesn't matter. It's chemically identical, and it doesn't have a smell difference between if it was isolated from cannabis.
So what you're saying is I should order that right now.
That is crazy, crazy pure. If you wanted to buy a cannabis terpene that was that pure, that promises from a top-level lab it's 100%, which it isn't, it's 99 point whatever. I've bought it from them. I want to buy it again. It's only $25 for a fucking 30 milliliters.
Will it make you do meth?
50% of the people that smell it for more than 3 to 5 seconds will simply want to go to sleep, and the sleep will be like 2 minutes at most.
Holy crap! Question. This is like the scopolamine of terpenes.
Is there any negative effects or dependencies?
Here's the thing: everyone that smokes weed smokes this shit every fucking day almost. Every time you smoke weed, you have a 60% chance that you're smoking a good amount of this.
I see. So what about tolerance? So you said if you do this, you said it lasts 6 months.
Oh, the tolerance is scary actually, because it's the kind of thing that you're not going to really have any kind of bad tolerance from causing the secondary effect of the opiates that are created. But it's the kind of thing I wouldn't use it. I never used it more than 4 times a day for 2 months.
I see. I just wanted
Was
to get
this in combination with other cannabinoids? Because what I'm reading is
yes, if you consume it, it'll do the same thing as if you had consumed it and it was naturally in.
Okay, well, what I was trying to say is apparently myrcene allows for the transfer of cannabinoids and other molecules through the blood-brain barrier to be increased and faster. Because of the effect, myrcene in high concentrations can feel like it is getting you higher, simply because the absorption rate is faster. So your natural cannabinoids are boosted through this chemical in high concentration. So maybe it's not the myrcene that gets you high, It just allows for the rest of the cannabinoids to work better.
By itself, smelling it gets you fucked in high. Like if you gave someone a syringe of morphine, it reacts almost the same way as just smelling the shit. You don't have to be already high at all off of weed. But yes, what you're saying is true. It increases the uptake. So yeah, that's why like when you have a high amount of myrcene and you have a high amount of active ingredients to begin with that are cannabinoids, it's going to increase the strength of the shit.
Ah, no wonder. Okay, so OG Kush, Blue Dream, boo. Grape Ape, yay.
Yeah, Blue Dream. Anyone says Blue Dream's good is a fucking idiot. Doesn't smoke much weed.
Dude, that's alright. GDP, Granddaddy Perp, you know?
Jack Herrera. Ever had that?
Yeah. Fuck. Anyone had AK-47?
Jack Herrera. That shit fucked me up for days.
Jack Herrera?
No, Herrera.
It's Herrera. It's not Herrera.
Oh, Herrera. Oh, well, I knew someone had that last name.
I dated this bitch named Herrera one time.
I mean, you never know with weed names.
She come inside you?
You ever hear G13?
Yeah.
Oh, is it true the government made it? Yes, G13,
Durban poison's pretty weird shit.
Did the government truly make G13, hence G13?
What are you guys into these days? Sativas or indicas?
Meth.
Hybrids. I'm more into hybrids.
Stop chewing in your mic, Trucker.
Right now I have Black Domina, which is actually pretty tasty. It's got a real pungent smell to it.
I've got some orange sherbet and some Irene Kush.
But I guess just sorry.
It's like a half Kim Dog, half Sour D hybrid. Ooh.
Sour Diesel is one of my favorites.
TWD Sativa.
You can get the stuff like 300 miles outside of Atlanta. It's grown.
I wish it was actual Sour Diesel.
Well, Sour Diesel's an original New York strain.
I wish it was real Sour Diesel. Like have the taste of diesel.
Yeah.
The diesel smell is just a mix of two terpenes, and it depends if you want a sweet diesel or a skunky diesel for ratio.
I want real diesel fuel.
You're just talking
so
about the more skunky, less sweet. It like hurts your fucking alpha pinene and beta pinene. If you buy highly pure shit like I linked of the myrcene, it'll fucking hurt to smell unless you like waft it. And wafting is where you hold the bottle in front of you and move
you use your hand
to push
the air into the
Brandy sniffed it.
It's like sex.
Huh?
The other one I'm smoking right now is Pink Starburst, which is pretty tasty as well.
Does it have like a fruity taste to it?
Yeah, it's been running.
This is on the more fruity side.
Cute.
And then the Black Domina is more on the skunky side.
No.
The highest I've ever gotten is from smoking truly decarb shit and then just smelling like this for 30 seconds and holding it in, and I like almost passed out.
Yeah.
Wish you did pass out. Has anyone here ever fainted from smoking pot? Be honest. Not me from smoking,
fainted.
but all right, because
I've puked.
I've grown up. One time I was smoking, and the first time we ever smoked during the day, and I just taken a hit from the bong, and the next thing I know, I wake up, my friend's like, "Oh, you just fell right to your knees for 2 seconds." I was like, "All right."
Back when I was first starting to smoke, I took a hit from a 2-liter GB, and they're like, this lesbian offered to me. She's like, "Hey, you want a GB?" And I'm like, "What's that?" And she's like, "Come over here." So then I took a hit of it, and I'm like, "Oh, this is pretty good."
Yeah, it's
like,
good.
And then all of a sudden, I took the hit, the second hit, third hit, and then I was off in La La Land, and like a half an hour later, I was just over the toilet for the rest of the night.
I made honey oil from Sweet Tooth, and we made it from buds. And I did a little stove toke off your regular coiled stove at like number 5 or something like that. And I literally almost passed out. I had ears were ringing. I seen stars, and I had to throw my arm in the sink
I have to
and fall
change
in.
doctors.
Jesus.
Is the grinder
Back
on?
in the
They don't
hot
want me going
knife
back
days,
there.
huh?
I've got a letter from them
Yeah,
saying
we
that
used
I
to
can
call it
see
pressing
another
blades.
practitioner that'll
Pressing
be able to handle my
blades.
case.
Nice. Y'all ever heard of Gigabud?
They said
Big
that
Bud
I
in
stank
Northern
when I
Lights
went to the
Cross.
when I went to the doctor's surgery last time.
That's the
That's not
first
true.
weed
I
I've
got
ever
mixed up with one
smoked,
person.
and I took
They said it was so
two
horrific
snaps
that
out of a bong. We were trying to
a
get like
nurse
the
was
best,
vomiting out the
and
back.
we were trying to get
That
super fucking faded. First time me
they
and my
had to
buddy ever
wipe
smoked,
down my
went to an old
seat. The
bando.
thing is, Mum, I
Bad
never sat in
mistake.
any of their seats. I was in my wheelchair.
He fucking
So
cleared
they
a
were
whole
lying from the
bowl,
word go.
coughed his
So I
ass
don't know
off.
what's
He was
going on. I think
dying.
I got the wrong
So I
person.
was like, oh well, I got to do that.
Yeah.
Some of the nicest stuff we used to do is we used to make bubble hash, right? And you get your different size trichomes, and for your lower grades, you turn around and you make an oil out of that.
I don't smell.
You reduce that, and you end up getting some really nice honey oil from low grade hash.
I said, hold
I
on a
straight up
second. I never
fucking
sat in
hallucinated the
any
first
seat. I
time I
sat in my
smoked.
wheelchair.
We took two snaps
And
out
I
of a
stayed in my
bong.
wheelchair, and I left
Like we
without
thought we knew
sitting
what
on
we were
any of the
doing. We
seats.
took two
And
snaps.
he goes, oh, one
And
of our
I mean,
nurses
like,
was vomiting out
we
the back
cleared two
because
bowls.
of the pungent
Like he
smell.
cleared the first one, I
Oh,
cleared
what
the
the
second one. I
hell are
was
you
like
talking
almost
about?
dead on the first
I
one.
mean,
Then
the
he
only
took
thing
the
I can think
second
of
one,
is
and I
my
was like,
foot being
fuck.
necrotic, but that doesn't
Man,
make
I
it smell bad.
gotta be on that level. So I took it.
So I didn't smell
We
while
ended
I
up
was
in the
with me.
floor, not being able to move,
So
straight up hallucinating.
I
Like
contacted a
it's
doctor
like a picture
on the internet.
frame with like
Coincidentally, he was in one of the chat
squares of
rooms I was sitting
different
on,
colors, like
and he said that
pulsating
I'm a
with each
high maintenance
heartbeat.
case, and
Different
because it's a
cartoon
private
characters in the
practice
middle of
and
that
it's
shit.
government
These are all
funded,
closed eye
they're
visuals, or
losing
maybe
money
they
by
weren't.
having
I
me as
don't
a
know. I
patient.
was fucked up. Like we didn't even go out the
So
front door.
they,
We went out a window. We were
would
so
rather
fucked
me
up.
go see
It
someone
was
else.
just, and somehow
It was
we got
horrible,
home.
Mum. I felt like
I don't
shit.
know how. It was like 5 hours later, but
And I'm being treated with such disrespect.
definitely
Yeah, and the letter
a
they sent me was
hallucinogen.
nothing like that. They said, because you
Oh,
are
I've always
unwilling
wanted
to
to
follow
hallucinate
our
like that
doctor's
on weed.
advice, we've
But I'd
attempted
puke
many
first.
times
I
to
just know it
reconcile with you, Mr. Soto. Please
these
go see
days.
another doctor. Well, what
I
the
had
fuck?
some
I
wild
don't even know what
visual
they're talking about.
hallucinations on cannabis when I first started smoking when I was young, like adolescent or whatever. I know this sounds bizarre, and it is bizarre, but I swear I remember getting high and seeing cars coming through my ceiling and down towards me, and as they were moving, they were like stretching out and elongating. I saw like sleeting through the roof a bunch of cars. Like that was the craziest thing.
Or on acid.
It only happened the one time, but I swear it was just cannabis, and I was probably like 14 years old.
He didn't even say
I've never
anything when I was
seen
in the
anything that
office.
wasn't there on
Didn't even
acid
mention
unless
the
I like
smell or anything like
have
that.
broken through on acid.
He was a bit
Well, I did acid
So I guess I could
and
say
shrooms at the same
I've
time.
broken through on cannabis as well.
If you do acid and shrooms at the same time, that's a wild trip. And it's like a good trip because you can't have a bad trip.
Acid,
It's crazy. Acid and shrooms mixed together. Oh my god, it's the greatest high ever.
But don't smoke weed because you smoke it all up and you're not gonna get
I
high.
did wash my
Just
hands,
saying.
baby wipes.
Save your weed.
We just gotta
Save
get
your
some
weed
of
for
this
the come down.
incesticide like the kids are doing these days.
I couldn't believe that, man. This wasping thing is real. So, fucking, I heard about this from that prison guard podcast we did. He said the prisoners do it, but then now the kids are doing it too, and the people are literally using wasp spray, like condensed crystallized raid, basically, like wasp killer, and using it as a drug.
So Brandon can go to
I swear to God, when I heard this, I was like, "There's no way." Apparently, it's a real thing. They're lacing drugs with it and shit.
Sounds like prison shit.
They do it in prison, but they put it in meth now, and it's called wasping.
Scary.
I mean, the way, the way the good drugs are all illegal. I mean, what else do you expect people to do? They make all the good stuff illegal. People are forced to use like air dusters and cough medicine, shit like that, and shit like this. Bath salts and the horrible shit that's not illegal because they have no choice. Like they want to get high, they don't know what to do, and they're dumbasses. They don't realize what this is going to do to them, and I mean, they long to experience, something psychedelic. Let's just say, for example, they want to experience what it's like to be high. There's nothing wrong with that, but because it's illegal and they don't have access to the healthy stuff, they're kind of like, oh shit, well, there's some illegal shit on the market. I heard it works. They don't know the side effects. It's some fucking black market shit. They get it, and they're fucked. And they're usually like dumb kids. When that get affected by stuff like this. So this is actually causing more victims. What they're doing. This is fucked up. Drugs should be legal, and fuck anyone that says otherwise. Fuck that person.
Yeah, fuck, please.
No, if you can't simply explain the difference between "In God We Trust" and laws, and how it's like God we trust, He created everything, so it's like, why do you even say that? It's what do you even know as a person? Have you thought about it much?
I'm getting about $800.
Good point right there.
I'm going to get the car fixed. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think there's that much like anti-weed sentiment anymore. I think people have kind of accepted that it is or should be legal, and it's legal in a lot of places, and it seems inevitable that it will be legal in most places soon. You know, the Netherlands, Uruguay, Canada, America, many parts of America. Like, presumably the war on drugs will end, and Bernie and others have said they'll end the war on drugs. So hopefully, who knows? I mean, if they were to win.
If marijuana or any drug becomes totally legal in the U.S., do you think it would be right if the president of the United States was to smoke in public? I think it would be.
I think it would be. Yeah. We can kind of see, like how Gary Johnson said that he used to smoke or whatever in the 2016 election. I mean, we can see the sentiment there. Most people at least didn't care, but the kind of the main news media does seem to have like a stigma against it still. So I think it would be kind of that way.
A lot of politicians have said they've smoked before or whatever. Didn't Mitch McConnell say he did?
And I think this house is making us sick. Yeah,
I mean, it's absurd to even talk about the legality. Like, it just needs to be legalized, obviously, everywhere. It's absurd to criminalize it. It's completely absurd.
Not just weed. I mean, there's a lot of other good stuff out there. Shrooms and LSD, for example, are a couple ones. You know, DMT, I would say it's also another one that should be legalized for sure. So I mean, it's bullshit, and most people that I've talked to, understand this argument very clearly, and they most are at least somewhat agreeable to this. You know, they agree to it to some extent. You know what I mean? They don't reject it outright when I say that all drugs should be legal. They're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You know, adults, whatever, they can do whatever the fuck they want to themselves. And I mean, right now, I'm free to buy rat poison. I can ingest it if I want. You know what I mean? Fuck, what the hell? It's not for my safety what they're doing. This is bullshit, absolute bullshit. Most people realize this argument, but still, in a what's supposed to be a democracy, we don't get the will of the people represented accurately because again, most people don't give a shit about drugs in general, except a few old fossils out there that don't know any shit about shit. At least the young people, they realize that, yeah, man, weed is okay, shrooms are fucking great, and the statistics back it. So, this is insane.
Belushi, that's a hybrid, eh?
What, the weed?
Mm-hmm. Looks like it.
I mean, dude, the thing about hybrids is why, like, it's pointless because, like, everything's a hybrid. Anyone ever grows, so it's like...
Well, true. Yeah. There's a million and one different phenotypes. And
we don't even know and that's where I go from the chemical standpoint, and, yeah, sure, that's all DNA related, and that's related to, like, what strains produce what high percentage of a specific terpene, so the terpene ratio per strain, but it's like... that comes second to knowing how to isolate and knowing the chemicals individually.
Check out the Leafly post I posted. Smelling lemons, unlocking the potential of citrus scented cannabis.
Apparently, yeah, I like Leafy. Those buds don't look very dense, Belushi.
No, they're not.
Smoke some weed.
That's an ounce of weed.
Mine actually smells very citrusy. It's interesting. So what does that do exactly? Like, what is that supposed to represent?
That's definitely limonene.
Man, it's so good, the smell of Matter Meltdown. The Meltdown. So good.
Helps Alzheimer's patients, apparently. I'll test. That's an article.
Linolene is L-limonene. The cousin molecule, which is closely related to it, which is in oranges, is D-limonene, but is not. That's not in cannabis. L-limonene is.
Oh,
I'm pretty sure that's in the list. The lists I put out of my notes are the things you want. If you're going at it from an efficient point of view, those are the first chemicals you should worry about for your high because they're the highest majority in any strain.
And we have a way of extracting them through fractional distillation.
Well, you can easily isolate the terpenes, like I said, with steam distillation. But then you would have to do fractional distilling to separate the total volume of terpenes into individual terpenes.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we should get more of that, going for sure. Like hopefully, I don't know.
You only need 2 pieces of lab equipment, a soak slit and a short path, and well, anytime you do lab shit, you want a distiller for the final reclaim collection of whatever you're using.
Yeah, of course. Otherwise, you would have to you recycle.
Well, you'd be wasting it into the air. Like evaporating your solvent into the air instead of recollecting it.
Yeah.
Right. You extract your shit, turn it back to gas. recondense it.
I would say as high a tolerance as it gets without just like naturally having a higher tolerance to cannabinoids or drugs in general. I've smoked at my highest about an ounce in like 3 days of dabs.
Oh shit! I was like thinking that's not really that much, and then
and I don't do big dabs. Like the biggest dabs, I mean, I've done big dabs, but the biggest dab I'll ever do on average is like very very small to the size of like a green pea.
Belushi, you're a hardcore man.
That's not small.
Belushi is one of the most hardcore party people I've met, and I've partied with some party people, but if I understand correctly.
Belushi is definitely, I would say, like a master chemist, psychonaut kind of guy, man. He knows his shit.
Well,
I'm rolling a salad joint right now, so honey oil, hash, and weed.
So where's the loot?
That was like when that question came to me, someone asked me, it's like, how much you gotta take to die? I'm like, Jesus, dude, you want to talk about LD50s? Fuck. Do you even know what that means? How many people here actually know what that means?
Lethal dose.
It means the dose at which, 50% of people would die.
50%, dude? That's crazy. Like, that's like the standard someone would ask. It's like,
I know, right?
I'm sorry, but 50% is not. It's like, what the fuck? I'm not gonna take that much.
So, Belushi, have you ever OD'd, or I mean, you don't have to talk about this?
Oh, I've taken enough. I've eaten a whole ounce of dabs before. So let me talk about.
Wait.
Let me talk about.
Don't overtalk, for fuck's sakes. I'm asking you a simple question, then you can answer it. I'm just saying, you're saying that you took 28 grams of dabs and ate that in one dose?
Not by itself, but that plus other stuff.
What the fuck?
Okay, so let me explain metabolites. So when you consume cannabis in general, you know how you guys, like, if you ever consumed any amount, how you can kind of like heat up and overheat and feel really sick if you do it way too much with an edible?
Yeah.
That's from processing. It's the natural decarboxylation process that happens with your liver and fatty acids. So that's one reason you want to activate weed, specifically THC and remove it, to make it so your liver doesn't have to process it. So your body uses fats to metabolize THC. So the best fats you can use are low carbon chain fats. So it's the same high quality fats you would use for really high end fats for ketosis, which is Q6, Q8, not really above Q9, maybe a little Q10 carbon chain length fats. Because when you have those lower carbon chain length fats, they don't have to be processed through the liver either. And if you consume enough of them, it's really crazy. You can literally feel a wave of energy go from your gut and come up your spine to your head, because that's like what your body runs on is fatty acids.
How do you get that? How do you get that change?
It's just I can link you to like a gallon of like stuff I would buy at the minimum for like not how much it is or whatever, but what grade it is.
Can you please link that? That's super fascinating.
Does it taste nasty?
If you separate into some, like if you get really pure shit, like you only have Q6 and Q9 fats, they can like smell like weird ass specific isolates of dandruff.
Oh.
But you know how cooking oil can smell like?
Yeah.
It's like essentially like a clean beginning stage of what rancid smells like.
Oh, gross.
Well, I mean,
so it's like you fried some chicken and like left it for a week and then sniff the oil. That's kind of what you got.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken a large amount of Rick Simpson oil one time. Was it, well, is that legal? Yeah, I think it's okay. I was in an hold it, don't interrupt. But I was in an airport and my flight got delayed for like 24 hours. So I had to stay in this airport. So I took this like crazy amount of Phoenix Tears or Rick Simpson oil, like cannabis concentrate. And I was like tripping out and it was crazy. It was like way too intense. And it lasted for like, at least 24 hours solid. Like that's the highest I've ever been probably.
I brought 3 grams of hash back in tincture. Dude, okay, so I got... Okay, so I met the Turpex crew from California at the Cannabis Cup. This thing, before the Cannabis Cup, was Carnival. Invite only. And just because I knew one of the guys that was like one of the hash gods, he was just like, yeah, come on through, no problem. So I went there. I got like the dankest bud I've ever smoked. Like I did like 13 dabs in a row at the cup, and it was like nothing compared to like this one fucking eraser head I did by like the hash gods. And I got like 3 grams of that shit. No, I got an eighth of that shit. Busted it all down. And you can only bring like 3 little tiny things of like um, uh, liquor on a plane, right? Those little tiny, what are they, 2-ounce
the necklace bottles?
Yeah, the necklace bottle things. So I bought 3 of those, and I fit like 3.5 grams into all those in tincture form, and I decarbed it beforehand. Like it was like, I guess it was some rosin before anybody knew what it was. Anybody, before it was like on the market, basically. Like it was like the underground, rosin. Or no, yeah, it was rosin. And dude, I drank all 3 of those on the plane thinking, I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking, oh, you know, 6-hour flight, I'll be fine. No, homegirl next to me, she was like drinking down all this whiskey, and she was like getting drinks on the plane, and she was like super fucked up, and I'm just sitting there completely silent because I'm like watching pink elephants fly the plane and shit. Like that shit was intense. I think tinctures are...
Yeah, red dragon, green dragon, whatever you want to call it. If you make that shit right, you can literally have the craziest experience ever, and you got to be so careful with that shit.
Oof.
So
you mean the red dragon, the strain, or
no? So green dragon is what people call it. It's just where you take alcohol and soak your weed, and then like it's an edible because you're gonna drink the alcohol. So if you do it right or really well, and not get much of the chlorophyll to dissolve without doing any fancy bullshit, you can get it to be like literally like maroon blood red. Like it looks like you took Kool-Aid and put a couple drops of blood in it for color. So there's no fat in alcohol, right? So for how it metabolizes, the alcohol actually bonds to the cannabinoids and makes it so it metabolizes as fast through your gut as it would the alcohol, and you can get like violently high off of like 3 shots or like 1 shot if you make it strong. Like if you take a fifth of, let's say, your favorite alcohol, it's really best to start with something more azotropically pure, so less water. Ethanol's azotropics.
Mine was Golden Grain. That's what I did.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Anything that's
or
like
grain alcohol, period.
As strong as you can get it, and you can still drink it, and you just soak it in and.
Yeah, you got to do it quick. 95% grain alcohol.
Dude,
you don't have to do
was
it that
drunk,
quick. I mean, you can soak it for like 2 hours if it's already frozen. You just freeze the shit.
Then it'll be bright green.
If you do it right,
wobbling down,
well, okay.
wobbling
You
down
know
a
what you
fucking
do?
aisle, trying to go puke in the bathroom, tripping nuts and drunk, on a plane at like 40,000 feet in the jet stream, moving at like 700 miles an hour ground speed is an experience I wish nobody ever has to go through.
Polly, the secret is to decarboxylate it. So UV is a really abruptive amount of chemical energy, chemical change. So it's the kind of thing you should be careful. A lot of cannabinoids will actually decompose into other cannabinoids. So that's where like the whole like craziness comes with, like when you crop your weed out, crop it down and dry it. How if you have 20 plants and you go to whatever a standard flower time would be, which is like minimum of 2 months, at the like crazy low minimum, you
You've never heard of M39 before, have you?
M39.
Yeah,
I've heard of it, but I don't know anything about it.
Absolute garbage weed, probably the crappiest weed ever grown, and it matures in 39 days. It looks finished, and literally a hemp plant. I think it's like a hemp plant. It's probably like 5 to 8% THC.
I've had crazy shit. The craziest shit I've ever have had happen in 9 years of growing is a plant that it would look fine and everything, but not really crystally at all. And the weed did nothing, but when we made it into concentrate, it was like, what the fuck strong. The craziest shit I've ever made was I did a strain called Space Candy that like is such a weird sativa. It just grows like awesome because it grows out and then back in on itself, but it just grows tennis balls, not colas really. And the high literally was like I've never done meth, but I've done Adderall, and it got me as like holy fucking shit going mentally as that Adderall would.
Dude, I've seen Big Bud foxtail, and when I mean I know foxtails are not necessarily preferred, but when I saw these Big Bud foxtails, it was like donkey dick growing out of donkey dick, and that shit smoked. It was like a rock. It was freaking insane. You could just snap one of those things off, and it was like freaking. I don't know, man. Quarter. He was like a.
You faded right away.
Big Bud's. I miss Big Bud. I haven't seen that straight in a long.
The things about talking about strains is it's real arbitrary because you don't know the constituents of the strains, and then it even gets more complicated because each time you grow it, it's the life of that DNA, not just what DNA at its best. So it's like that's where all the misinformation and complexity over complex comes from weed and the community around it and the culture.
Yeah, I should
Like
probably
an
get
example of this is like, so example, opium, right? Poppies, there's only two chemicals in the plant that people use to derive shit. Codeine and morphine. Okay. Weed, just of cannabinoids, not other things. Think the category that defines the species. There's that like hundreds easily isolated, thousands hard. You could, if you really spent a lot of time doing it, you could get thousands. You know, it's crazy how much more complicated it is. And so it makes sense that people. It's the big confusion between hybrids, Tiva, Indica, mention ruderalis, because that doesn't really mean if it's like, oh, hey, buddy, it's ruderalis. Oh, it's indica. You're not going to freak out. That doesn't mean you're not going to freak out, because you don't know exactly why you're freaking out, because there's so many things that are at play that can change.
Yeah, there's like 483 main ones.
Yeah, that's insane.
Don't you just want
And
to
the
go
combinations are endless, just like you guys were talking about.
Score a plant and just lick it and see what happens? I don't know. That's just.
It's really cool if you take plant science to a max, how fast you can get plants in general to grow from standard state of being outside.
Yeah.
I posted earlier
magic.
in the chat everything about growing with every plant at the base level.
Fuck some endo.
Like the last oil that I made it from like 7 different types of pot.
Yeah, and it came out way better, way stronger than anything, right?
Oh yeah, I'm smoking one right now and it just fucking dummies me.
Did you make a compost out of your trimming?
No, it was all bottom of the bags.
But you said soil? I think
oil.
Oil. Ah. Oh.
So to explain just a little, the pictures I posted. When you grow a plant, specifically what I grew was weed. I've grown a lot of other things, but oxygen content, so dissolved oxygen in the water that's available for the plant, so in the soil or in a purely hydro system. The biggest thing for bottleneck that controls how fast you're going to have your plant dividing cells in whatever cycle it's in is the relative amount of dissolved oxygen in the root environment, so the water. With soil, you're not going to really give a shit because your shit's either good or bad, and it doesn't matter what you add to your soil microbial wise. It's not going to change it if it's good or bad. It's the media itself. If you have the right media to begin with, so the right mix of organic, natural shit, like worm castings, vermiculture, clay, raw sand, compost itself. Ensure you have all the micronutrients at every stage available, and then all the different decay chains. You're going to have all, like, you don't have to add anything. You're going to have the microbes to have a natural, really healthy microbiome environment to have the proper amount of regulatory everything with the bacteria, including oxygen, like I was just talking about. So if you look at the chart, obviously when you get something warmer, it's more reactive and there's less oxygen available in the solution. It's harder to get water to dissolve into it and stay in it. That's pretty much the main thing. A standard bubbler doesn't even get close. I'm working on advanced ways of using 90-degree turns and water pumps and electrolysis to try to get actual nanobubbles. Nanobubbles are bubbles that are so small that you can't even see them, and they don't react to normal physics. They actually fall, they don't rise. And over time they shrink and equal dissolved oxygen in the water higher. With this kind of technology, you can actually like kill plants by over oxygenating the water.
Holy shit, I did not know that was possible. That's awesome. Crazy.
When you increase oxygen levels, it increases the min max curve for all the other variables too. So for how much salt burn the plant can have a tolerance to for its roots. So pH shift and change in pH range is increased with positive and negative pHs for what's possible to withstand and not go awry in any significant way. It's crazy what it can do. In all seafood markets in China and Japan, they have nanobubble generators to sterilize all the clams and all the shit, all the that kind of shit. And like, if you take a bunch of like sick clams that have some virus or parasite or whatever, and treat it with this system with the water, it'll literally like clean them and kill all the shit in like a few days. It's crazy. They do it with crab. See, it's crazy, crazy cool shit.
What if you drink that water?
They're actually like, you know, when you drink, you know, when you consume something, unless it's like chemically specific and does something else, like I was mentioned DMSO, it does what it fucking wants with gravity through your system. It goes through your circulatory system, right? So if you eat something like water, you know, it's going to be absorbed, and then, I mean, at a certain point, it's just going to go everywhere because it's water. But the nanobubbles, they're doing testing with specific tissues, so like injecting it or like however surgically applying the water, not drinking it. But I mean, I know there's beneficial effects to drinking it. It's just, it's the kind of thing that that's like my current project I'm working on, is making a really efficient nanobubble generator. It's the kind of thing where like a diseased body of water, if you just throw it in there, depending on how many gallons there are and how powerful your nanobubble generator is, it'll clean the shit and cause life to just explode.
Do you think is it possible to create these nanobubbles in blood too? How did you generate it again? Was it with a
So all it
piezoelectric?
is the easiest way that's been discovered is getting the small enough bubble to form on the outside of a surface, so above air stone material, and then having movement of water strip the bubble off into the water. And if you strip the bubble off at a small enough size, the movement of the water stripping it off and moving away causes it to shrink even more into the from micro to nano scale.
I see. So let me get that straight. You get like a porous, like stone, like whatever material, right?
I'm lucky enough to have a kiln for ceramics. So I found the patent recipe for this Japanese guy that figured out how to mix clay and activated carbon to make these stones and this shit. This is like, so before this technology I'm talking about, you had to use cavitation bubbles in like a double helix anti-clockwise swirl motion to even generate any amount effectively. And this shit is like, yeah.
That's insane. So what you're saying is you just mix clay with basically
I have the PDF somewhere here. Let me see.
Or you know, some type of carbon. You burn the carbon
activated
off in
carbon
the
is
kiln,
carbon that's been graphene or carbon that's been put through a vacuum oven to make it so all possible connections to the carbon, which there's 4, are ready and free and available.
But basically, you burn off the carbon to leave.
It's way more than burning, but yeah.
There's, I was gonna say something. What is the energy efficiency of this process? Let's say you wanted to cleanse water for people, like for humanitarian purposes.
Oh, okay. So the thing is this is like one example that's from the carbon. Okay, so right. So there's a company that's impregnated the material into a little patch, and the patch is like, it doesn't, like, water doesn't come out like a jet, but it comes out like a slow faucet, and it's like beyond clean enough to drink.
So
are you talking about like laminar flow type somehow?
I mean, the stream might be a laminar. It wouldn't be a laminar flow vertically or horizontally, maybe falling.
So what is like what do you think about the practicality of it being used on a large scale for cleaning water?
Well, it's what I'm using to clean water. So you remember what you posted about the graphene?
Yeah.
You have no idea what you started by posting that.
Oh, shit,
So I
really?
already have sodium sulfate, and sodium sulfate isn't even the most efficient one to use because you just want the more sulfate ions you can get. And I can't remember what it is, but I ordered it. It doesn't matter though. It's only like double the efficiency. So it still is like good. Um, and I'm just waiting for the I just needed the right size beaker, and I'm gonna start making graphene nanoparticles.
Yeah, please.
How many do you want?
Nice.
And you know what I'm gonna do with it is what you just
Really
asked. Is
tiny
the
bubbles.
filtering. If you take that stuff and build a filter correctly, you can literally make like the highest grade water filter for all in one or a pre ultimate pre filter with this.
Dude,
I mean, but that
get
would
that shit
clog
made,
so
man.
quickly, wouldn't it?
I'm excited.
It's really
The
cool because if you measure the parts per million, you'll see the drop off start, and then once it rises again is the lifespan of the filter. So when you remake it, you know how what size the lifespan is by the media size.
Right. Smaller the media, the shorter the lifespan.
Yeah, well, of course, yeah.
So, is that feasible economically, like on a large scale
Well,
production? Like,
economically, no. Deuce here posted a way of making nanoparticles with just distilled water and sodium sulfate and battery setup at 2 volts, and being able to go from 2 volts to 10 volts with a graphite and a anode and a steel cathode.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. You gotta watch that video. It's
Yeah.
such an easy way to create mass
Where's that
produced
guy from?
nanoparticles.
Because when a lot of words he says, I'm like, what the fuck did he say?
Well, his name was Robert Murray Smith, apparently.
Is
I
that
don't know.
Irish?
I have no idea. But yeah, this is good shit. Anybody that's interested in science in any way, shape, or form owes it to themselves to watch that video, for real.
So with cannabis, I mostly talked about, besides the random questions, smoking. So with it consuming the high quality, lower carbon chain fats, like I was talking about, and I linked on the second thing in the cannabis recorded chat. So if you mix that at an equal ratio with the total weight of what you have for ingredients, so if you have a gram of shatter, mix a gram of this with it, and that's the first ideal point for the cannabinoids being metabolized and preventing the overheating I was talking about that many of you have experienced. So when you mix it with the fat, it's the same thing as the alcohol. Is it helps it be metabolized in your liver, not have to process so much and overheat your body. So beyond just mixing this in, there's really not much. This is like the golden seal. You could start a $1 billion edible service just by understanding how to obtain and manufacture whatever THC or cannabinoids, and know to mix this shit with it, and then use it in whatever food product you want. If you have really pure cannabis extract in this, and you can hide pretty significant amount of weed in almost anything, and you can't tell.
How? Okay, so this electrolysis system, oxygen and ozone. What is the green thing? The O3 to O2. How does that happen?
You talking about the picture?
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't O3 go to O2 naturally? O3 is unstable, isn't it?
O3 is ozone, so yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, in the total amount of oxygen that's created, you think about it. When you split water, what's happening here, right? what happens? There's 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, right? Or am I just really fucking high?
No, you're right.
Okay, so yeah, so what happens is that's just a fucking stupid ass little simple example.
Right
So in the system I'm designing, it's just a pump where the side where the oxygen and ozone is gets blown down a spiral that isn't an actual like circular spiral. It's a 90-degree spiral, and every time the little bubbles that form hit the thing, they get smaller, and it looks like this weird ass ghostly mist when it comes out. And that's because most of the bubbles are so small you can't see it. And if you've successfully made nanobubble water, how you test it is you buy just the cheapest ass green laser you can get on eBay for like $4, $2. And when you actually put microbubbles into a body of water, you can shine, for example, before the bubbles are there, if you shine in the water, the laser won't go through. It'll only show up on the sides of the material of the container. When the nanobubbles are in there, you'll see it as clear as day for hours and days, because that's how long that those nanobubbles float around in the solution when they're generated. So to continue, I jump back on the nanobubble path, which is something that's crazy cool shit, and I can't wait to figure it out, because it's the kind of thing where I've really been looking for a Kickstarter thing to do, and I think it's something I could do easily.
So these nanobubbles are basically nearly the density of water.
No, to qualify for a nanobubble, it has to be from it has to be from 5 to 10 which is
right.
What's
UM is like the smallest thing before like it's what acid's measured in. It's fucking
micrometer.
Micro.
Micrograms.
I'm really bad with the fucking symbols.
But like, okay, so what's the density of these bubbles?
I don't fucking know. It's whatever the density is of the volume of the circumference of the circle times whatever you the simple formula.
If they're not floating up.
Oh, okay, so dude, so this is actually easy to answer your question. So whatever the volume is of a 5 to 10 sphere is of our atmosphere is the answer to your question.
Oh boy, here comes.
That's easy. I mean, I could probably do it, but it's like, why do you care? Just to understand the physics of why it happens? Because I'll be honest with you, the people that figure this out don't even understand it, so don't even ask.
So it has to be filled with our atmosphere, but like, what if it's filled with a different gas? What kind of effects have we observed?
Well, that's the thing with this. So what I'm doing, right? It's not our atmosphere. It's concentrated it's split water. So normally, so this is like a hyper acceleration, like efficiency process. So if you start to begin with something that's already more pure, like an oxygen tank or oxygen generator that then goes into the nanobubble generator, you're gonna have a way more efficient, of course.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Pure oxygen. Yeah, way cooler. Yeah, hell yeah, man.
I don't think your plants would.
But see, what I'm doing is so I've really thought this out. So with what you're talking about, right? Like, which is a viable option. You'd still need a really badass airstone to be able to make small enough bubbles from the tank to do it.
Oh yeah, of course.
So what they do is the machines that have been around the last 30 years are here. I'll just talk about it. I have PDFs that are big that talk about the patents and stuff, but they use the reverse cavitation bubbles hitting each other to get water to be oxygenated with nanobubbles.
And what do they use to cavitate the water?
It's just this egg-shaped container that has water inlets at certain angles that causes it to have controlled cavitation inside.
Cool. No spinning parts, just fast.
Well, the only thing spinning is jets of water.
That's cool.
So Belushi, now I'm curious, like, how did you get down this path of being so deep into this stuff? Because you're deep into all this stuff, like, and it's not just one thing; it's like everything, right? It's like psychedelics and this and that and all this different stuff.
Anything I cared about to know to begin with, I mean, I'm gonna take it all the way if I even take it in at all.
Go boy.
So other than drugs and stuff, what are you into otherwise?
Computers.
Gotcha.
I was way before into computers than drugs.
I think we have similar interests.
Yeah, Belushi and Mech should get together.
So, computer decided to fuck my.
Can you tell us about when the computer fucked your ass? In a sense?
Well, you guys.
Well, it was March of 2015, and it vibrated my ball.
All right then. How do you feel about that?
Pretty, actually. ETs are a little rapey, to be honest.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry to laugh, but
no, for real, dude.
No,
straight up Independence Day, dude. It's straight up Independence Day.
Fuck Independence Day, at least where I live.
No, well, it's the movie Independence Day, where it's like, did the aliens do butt stuff to you, boy? And they were making fun of what's his name, the pilot.
I have a question.
Oh, Aviator.
Belushi, I have a question. Is it possible to like increase the surface area significantly, like using some sort of fractal design or something? You know, for the pores, like for the air nanobubble, the surface area where the nanobubbles are created, where the water jets pass across it. You said there was.
You're talking about increasing the mass of what?
Not mass, the surface area of where the bubbles.
So that's what makes it possible, dude. So once a bubble is past 10 for its size, it defies physics.
It doesn't float. It just kind of rocks around.
It starts shrinking.
There, right?
And they think it's because it's light enough that any little energy amount, like any little current, can literally make it go any direction over the amount of buoyancy there is.
I mean, is it
so we have light or super or just about as dense as water? Because it's compressed somehow. Maybe
it's not compressed. It's the same thing as the amount of pressure there is in a bubble is the same from large to small. It stays the same because the bubble size changes between. Okay, so there's I can't remember the name, but there's like the graph where you can explain this shit, and it's like how a bubble changes in size as it rises and how fast. I can't remember what it's
called. I don't know, but when you scuba dive, you gotta exhale on the way up, or your lungs will explode.
Yeah.
We have observed. Sorry.
Like I was the deeper you go, like if like
Paul, Abundant, shut the fuck up, man. Abundant. Can you not hear me, man? Jesus.
I was interrupting though. Honestly, it was my bad. Seriously, I was gonna say that we have used nanoparticles in water before, and they do behave different. Like we have used metal nanoparticles in liquid to enhance thermal conductivity. That's something cool.
I'm sorry, carbon nanotubes will actually conduct electricity, so you can actually, when they're in the shape of when they're wrapped around each other, for example, they conduct electricity. So.
Yeah, I had a legit question, but
because carbon doesn't.
Now.
You just have to try not to overtalk. You, like NSA said, you're overtalking a lot. Just try to let other people have a turn and just be a little less pushy on the mic.
Well, like the guy said, he said I wasn't overtalking, I guess.
Well, I did. My impression is that you are a little bit overtalking. Just try and give up the mic a little more easily, please.
You have been overtalking, just not the one this time. It was my bad, but you have been overtalking for sure. But it's fine. I mean, just be cordial. You know what I mean? Don't if you do it accidentally. It's no big deal. But obviously,
yeah, fuck you.
But no, I mean, just give the space. Like two people are overtalk. The best interaction is when both people yield. That's like the ultimate, polite thing. Both people yield. They're like, no, go ahead. No, you go ahead. I mean, that's just the best.
Sounds gay, dude.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree, but no big deal, man. And I apologize. carrying on. I completely
Fucking
lost what you guys were talking about. You got into this insanely deep conversation about bubbles and micro bubbles, and I'm just sitting here smoking weed. I'm like, what the fuck are they even talking about at this point? But that's because I'm a stoner.
Surface tension of the water molecule.
What's fucked is while I taught all myself all this shit.
Belushi, the the microphone escaped.
Your microwave is gay.
Put it back in your face. We can't hear you, is what I'm saying.
He said your microwave is gay, but he meant to say your microwave dropped out. Yeah, I just said microwave too. What the fuck?
My microwave's a spying on me.
Oh my god, does anyone have an e-meter? We need to check for radiation.
Dude.
I actually had an e-meter.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
Belushi, we're trying to say your microphone is like got quiet all of a sudden.
No, I heard him.
I turned it down because I'm using my blowtorch to do another.
Well, we can hardly hear you, is what we're trying to.
Back up.
I can hear him for some reason pretty well.
Yeah, but you're a fucking mutant and have robot ears.
Remember when Mac and I started talking in a robot voice by accident? That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was
I thought he was doing it on purpose for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing that logically makes sense, but I swear either part of my memory just chopped off and I did it, or somehow it got activated through some hotkey.
Look, go back to the CIA, bitch. Nobody.
Okay, so I'm gonna give an example why you don't dab as much as I do.
You start breathing like you have a diabetic shock.
Holy cow, motherfucker!
Yeah, he went.
See, that's why he breathes like that, because he fried his lungs with dabs, man. That's probably why.
He's going into fucking Beatus mode, like, I don't know what is happening. My blood sugar. Give me a Snickers, somebody. Give me a Snickers. See, he's fucking having a seizure again.
Before I was interrupted, did anybody catch like the first thing that I said?
You said you're the Lamb of God.
All right, so this conversation is totally derailed. I guess the recording.
It hasn't derailed.
I have a question.
What's your question, Aviator? What's your question?
For everybody who has a medical marijuana license, what did you pay? Okay, this dude is coughing. Don't start that again.
Yeah, try and close your mic if you're going to
medical marijuana card, because Missouri allows it now, and it averages like people are paying like $190 to go to the doctor and get one. I'm just curious what you guys paid.
That's pretty normal.
Yeah.
Is it not like something insurance covers? Like you just have to pay outright to get it to the doctor?
I've never seen insurance cover it.
Oh.
Yeah.
I don't know how it works. I was just curious.
It's anywhere from 50, 100, 150 to 200 I've ever seen.
Yeah, I've seen higher. So for Illinois, before it became legal, it was like 300, I think, or something. It was nasty. But yeah, and as far as I know, insurance does not cover it at all. You just have to pay out of pocket.
I remember what
that
I
makes
was
sense.
gonna say.
I'm not sure if it was.
The more compressed the air gets, right? Denser the air gets. So maybe these micro bubbles become more dense. Maybe to the point they're so small anyway. Maybe there's like a ratio of like small bubbles to like the deepness of the water. That
I posted shit about this.
See, like
already, but I'll post again in a second.
I was gonna say, like
listen, it's very simple. Everybody knows the rules here. You try your hardest not to interrupt anybody. If you do get interrupted, you can point it out, but don't get butthurt about it. And if I think you're interrupting someone, I'll try and stop you to let the other person talk. And if that happens, you just get over it and move on. That's it. Just everybody's doing their best. And if there's moderation, just don't get upset about it. No repeat of last time, Abundant.
I feel like fingers are pointed at me like a lot.
Okay, Abundant, you're melting down like last time. It was ridiculous last time. Don't do it again. Just move on. Clear your mind, take a deep breath, and continue with the conversation. Okay, don't go down that route.
I don't know where my headphones went.
How you doing in the dryer?
I lost my headphones. I felt
goddamn.
When I was getting gasoline, the authorities came and I told them that I'm going to set them on fire if they come close to my campsite.
Wait, who did you say you were going to set on fire? The authorities?
Yeah, I told the fucking cops that I'm going to set them on fire with napalm if they fucking come close to my campsite.
That's not a good thing to say to cops.
They'll leave me alone thus far.
I hope that they were just in your mind. You didn't get... No, you couldn't have got that. Yeah. Hopefully there was no cops there.
No, I said, motherfucker, you live in these $500,000 fucking houses above me. I live in a fucking tent that costs $100 below you. Leave me the fuck alone. And if you want to fucking come and fucking burn my fucking tent down, I will fucking burn your fucking house down.
Okay, don't talk about... This is in Minecraft and just a dream he had. He didn't say any of this to anybody. Don't... This is recorded, right? This is a recorded event.
Fuck them.
Okay. He doesn't mean it, folks.
And then no houses will get burnt down.
Okay.
I would kind of like to get back to this microbubble aeration.
Okay, what did you want to say about microbubble aeration?
Well, what I was trying to say is maybe there's a ratio between the size of the bubble and the amount of water. It's like, fill your lungs up with a bunch of air, before you free dive. The deeper you get, the faster you sink, because the air gets denser, right? Maybe these microbubbles are so fucking small that the ratio of the amount of water above them compresses them to the point where maybe their mass is similar to the water, therefore they don't float as readily as the other one. The other theory is that
I'm not
they're
gonna
so
one at a
fucking
time.
small.
Jeez.
They're so fucking small they can just be fucking fucked around like a feather in the wind.
But why are we talking about the bubbles at all? That's what I've lost sight of. Like, what is the relevance of these tiny bubbles?
The relevance is in growing.
In growing cannabis,
like in aeroponics or like in hydroponics, like to try to get like oxygenate your.
So I went deep dive all the way. So if you're going to grow things right, the first thing that if you can maximum achieve is dissolved oxygen in water. That's the first main bottleneck of any plant.
Am I still audible even though I don't have my headphones?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, that's good. I'm going
to
take
how's the campsite life right now?
I lost my shot, but my buddy came down. He was supposed to get my fucking charger back, but he didn't. Oh well. I went to get some fucking fucking gasoline because these motherfuckers wanted to fuck with us.
Belushi, can I post these links that you posted on the library channel, or can you do it yourself? Like, I'll do it, but I would prefer if you do it.
I'm going pretty lazy, high off my ass, like standard. I'm not like organizing and being proficient in any way.
Oh, it's fine. But if you could just post in a library, I'll prefer it, because this is probably going to get lost, and I think it is truly valuable
It's already
information.
gone, dude. This we're all smoked up, doped up. This thing is like shot.
Can you hear me?
So far, the stream has been going for 2 hours, 20 minutes. We're going to push for 3 hours, Shogun, or...
We can wrap it up anytime you guys want. I just want to let you guys talk, and if anyone wants to keep talking, we can keep talking. If you guys want to wrap it up, we can wrap it up.
I think we should wrap it up, actually, because it's like an overload at this point. There's so much shit that we went over.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thanks, guys. This was great. Appreciate it. We could probably do... Hold on, whoever's talking. We could probably do a dozen more episodes on this. But thanks, everyone who came out, and for the recorders, and for everybody who contributed. Thank you, Belushi. I know you wanted to do a special event on cannabis growing or plants. Maybe this was what you wanted to cover, or if you want to still do that, let me know. And then meanwhile, we will do another podcast soon, probably tomorrow, if anyone wants to do that. And find us on Roundtable Discord server on all the social media. Thank you, Ainsoft, for creating the YouTube and all the new channels and stuff. Really appreciate it. Okay, thanks, everybody. Let's jump down to the regular room.
Are we jumping to the main channel?
Just the main channel, yeah. Thanks, guys.
And thanks, Mary Jane, for supplying us.
Thank you, marijuana, and thank you, Abundant. All right, jumping up.